The UN Security Council has renewed the mandate for peacekeepers in Darfur. A compromise for the sake of peace, or is justice taking a backseat to realpolitik? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Sami Zaidan. UN troops are to stay in Sudan for another year. The UN Security Council has renewed its mandate for peacekeeping in the Darfur region. Well, the decision was made just 2 hours before the existing mandate was due to expire. But the resolution didn't have the backing of the entire Security Council, as Bethan Howe now reports.
I invite the representative of the Sudan to take a seat at the council table.
Deciding Darfur's future. The UN Security Council meeting on peacekeeping in the region left it to the last hours of the existing mandate to vote on whether or not to extend it. The decision had been complicated by the International Criminal Court's move to indict Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir for alleged genocide. The African Union had asked the Security Council to suspend the ICC's proceedings for 12 months. They're concerned that prosecuting Sudan's president might threaten the peace process in Darfur. The UK, France, the US and Central American countries have objected to the idea, saying there should be no link between peacekeeping and any ICC action. After much compromise, the Council finally made its decision.
The result of the voting is as follows. 14 votes in favour, no votes against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 1828/2008.
Out of the Council's 15 members, only the US abstained, unhappy with the wording of the revised resolution. It notes the request for a delay, but goes no further.
The United States abstained in the vote because language added to the resolution would send the wrong signal to Sudanese President Bashir and undermine efforts to bring him and others to justice.
The UN estimates that 300,000 people have been killed in 5 years of fighting in Darfur, and more than 2 million have been displaced. The new resolution sees peacekeepers remaining in the region for at least 1 more year. But with pressure mounting for and against the indictment of the country's leader, it's likely this won't be the last time these issues are discussed in the coming months. Bethan Howe for Inside Story.
Well, joining us now are guests here in Doha, Salah Khojali, a Sudanese media specialist and political analyst. In Springfield, Massachusetts, Eric Reeves, an analyst on Sudanese affairs. And on the line from The Hague, Andrew Cayley, former senior prosecutor general at the International Criminal Court. He was also senior prosecutor for the first ICC trial on Darfur. If we could start with you, Eric. Was it a mistake, perhaps, as some are suggesting, for the UN resolution to even mention the ICC case?
I do believe that the political actions of the Security Council should be kept fully separate from the actions of the International Criminal Court. While it is true that the Security Council referred atrocity crimes in Darfur to the ICC in March 2005, we need to keep judicial and legal investigation separate from the politics of the United Nations, and in particular in this case, the urgent need to continue to deploy UNAMID forces on the ground in Darfur.
All right, let's raise that point with Andrew. Is it possible to keep the two separate, politics and justice, looking at the history and background of the ICC?
I think the reality is it's absolutely impossible to justify the separation of the two issues. I understand what Eric Reeves is saying. In the best scheme of things, they would be separate issues, but the reality is, as he points out, the Security Council referred this matter to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, and inevitably, whatever steps the International Criminal Court takes are going to have political ramifications in the region. Just to give an example, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom visited Sudan very recently and met with President al-Bashir to discuss the peace process. I cannot see how a senior member of any government which is a member state of the Rome Statute, the International Criminal Court, can possibly meet with President al-Bashir after the action of the court.
Well, that's an interesting point. Salah Khujali, is it possible to pursue justice and achieve settlement at the same time?
Actually, I would like to say this matter is actually, or this case is actually politicized. Because if we go back, we can see that the Secretary General sent a commission to Darfur, and the report of the commission that the Sudanese government has not pursued genocide. Moreover, President Carter himself, he visited Darfur, and he said the genocide of Darfur case is a big lie. That is why I believe the matter is highly politicized. It is not a matter of justice, because genocide actually did not take place in Sudan. We can say war crimes took place, and even President al-Bashir mentioned it clearly that war crime took place and that the Sudanese court can take care of this matter. That is why I do not agree even to connect between two, because we do not looking for extending the procedure. Actually, we are looking to drop the case altogether.
All right, Eric, how would you respond to that, the suggestion that this whole case since the beginning has been used and abused by different powers for their own self-interest? I think what Salah Khujali is hinting at.
Well, let me clarify first the relation between the pursuit of justice and the pursuit of peace, which have been set up as opposing goals. I certainly don't believe that on the specific issue of renewing the mandate of UNAMID that the ICC issues should have been raised. That's what I meant about separating politics in that particular case. But I think going forward, it's certainly the case that the UN Security Council will be looking to Article 16 of the Rome Statute, which gives it the right to suspend for a year ICC investigations and actions. But this should occur only after there are very, very significant concessions from the Khartoum regime on the matter of UNAMID deployment, which it is obstructed, on the matter of humanitarian harassment and abuse, which has been relentless.
Should it be that
and
way
on the
around?
matter of fulfilling the terms.
Forgive me for interrupting, but the US Special Envoy for Sudan seems to think that perhaps it works the other way around. To quote his words, he says this indictment may well shut off the last remaining hope for a peaceful settlement in the country, as if it should be the indictment is an obstacle rather than an incentive to achieving peace and stability.
I quite disagree. I believe that this regime has very little legitimacy. Let's remember it came to power by a military coup in June of 1989, deposing an elected government and deliberately aborting the most promising chance for a North-South peace agreement. Both the UMA and DUP parties had already agreed to the outlines of a North-South peace agreement, so the last 16 years of this brutally destructive North-South war is on the watch of this current regime, which has very little legitimacy, will not permit free and open elections, has not appointed in a timely way an election commission. In fact, it still doesn't exist. This is not a legitimate regime, and I believe that the ICC indictment further reduces the legitimacy and increases the incentive for the regime to reach out, as it has, to the African League, African Union, the Arab League, and others to try to regain some of the legitimacy that has been lost.
But Eric, is the issue about whether regimes around the world are legitimate or illegitimate, or is the issue investigating allegations of war crimes and genocide?
Well, this is where the difference between politics on the one hand and the ICC investigation on the other does become impossible to sustain. So I agree with the comments that were made a moment ago. I was speaking just about the immediately passed Security Council resolution. I think going forward, we have tremendous problems in restarting a peace process, which does not exist now. We have to create incentives both for Khartoum and for the rebel groups. And let's not leave aside the rebel groups, which are fractious and have been a tremendous part of the problem in securing peace and moving forward. But unless there is much increased pressure on Khartoum, which I believe this ICC appeal for an arrest warrant provides, we're very, very unlikely to see the the regime move.
All right, let's take that point back to Salah Khojali. Without any pressure, the Sudanese government is unlikely to actually do anything positive to save innocent people being killed in Darfur, as I think is the opinion being expressed there.
Actually, if I understand your question clearly, the Sudanese government actually already presented some people who were accused for war crime to court. Moreover,
but some would argue, if I may interrupt, forgive me for interrupting you too, but some would argue that was only as a result of increased international pressure. Otherwise, we wouldn't have even got to that point, some might say.
No. Even they were presented to court before this case has been up to discussion in the Security Council. Also, if we go back, we can talk about legitimacy. Legitimacy is actually decided by the people of the country. And if we look upon the time in which this case is actually now under consideration, we think that the time is absolutely wrong, because there is only a few months from election, and there is nothing will judge the legitimacy in this of this government more than the election. The timing itself will show that it is a political matter. The prosecutor himself, in his fourth report to the Security Council, in page 46, he mentioned clearly that he didn't find any material or circumstantial evidence for genocide in Sudan. And only after 2 or 3 weeks, he accused President Bashir for 3 genocide cases. How come a prosecutor mentioned in a report to the Security Council that he didn't find any material evidences for genocide, and now, after only a few weeks, he accused President Bashir for 3 cases?
Well, all right, those are some interesting observations you have. Let's take them to Andrew. Andrew, of course, you've worked as the senior prosecutor general at the International Criminal Court. From what you know, how solid are the charges, are the evidence, the case to personally pin down Omar al-Bashir for genocide?
Just to correct you, I was actually senior prosecuting counsel, not senior prosecutor general, but I mean, that's aside from the point. I think in terms of the evidence, I think really one has to go for the moment on what is publicly available, and the prosecutor at the time of the application for this warrant of arrest provided a 10-page public summary of the evidence, which I have in front of me, and I must confess it's not a very substantial document. One really does wonder what evidence the court, the Office of the Prosecutor, possesses against President al-Bashir. You have to understand, and your listeners have to understand, that bringing charges of genocide against somebody is a very serious matter indeed. And in order to prove it, and I have been involved in cases where I have proved genocide. I was involved in the first Srebrenica case, the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia, and the level of evidence that is required is substantial. And I really do ask the question, and I'm sure the judges will be reviewing this at the moment in the pre-trial chamber, what evidence does Mr. Moreno Campo exactly have against Mr. al-Bashir? And what's more, what evidence in terms of the crimes that have actually taken place in Darfur can be characterized as genocide? A number of people, a number of very well-respected academics in this field, Professor Shabbos, one of the leading experts on genocide in the world today, has questioned whether or not these crimes that have taken place in Darfur should be characterized as genocide. So I think there are a lot of questions that people are asking about this in America, not for one moment disputing that crimes have taken place, which the Sudanese government acknowledged. They've acknowledged this in their own National Commission of Inquiry.
Right. Some interesting points there. No doubt it is a very difficult road ahead for that case. But it is now time for a short break. When we come back, is peacekeeping really the solution? Or is it time to rethink policy towards Darfur? Stay with us.